Okay, let's unpack this. If you've spent any time studying for, cloud certifications, you've hit that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
It's where the theory just stops and reality begins. You can explain the difference between a regional availability zone and a physical edge location, no problem. But then you open your first AWS console.
And that is a moment of just pure, unadulterated vulnerability.
It really is. You get that email, you log in, your credit card is on file, and you're just staring at this empty console.
Right.
And you feel this pull, this immediate pull to jump into the fun stuff.
Of course. You want to launch an EC2 instance.
Exactly.
Yes.
Spin up a test database, something cool. But that feeling, that's actually the danger.
It is. I mean, the critical takeaway for today's deep dive is really this. The first 24 hours of your AWS account's life are probably the most perilous.
Because there are no guardrails.
Zero. You have zero guardrails in place.
Yeah.
Every bad actor in the world knows that the default settings are weak, and, every new user wants to rush past the boring setup stuff.
And that is precisely why we're here. We're taking the key insights from the experts, this non-negotiable checklist for financial security survival, and we're boiling them down into 4 critical steps.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just theory. This is your operational guide for day 1.
Our mission today is to secure your environment and, just as important, protect your wallet. And we need to do that before you even think about deploying a single service.
Right.
If you skip these 4 steps, you're essentially leaving the keys to your brand new, extremely powerful data center just right under the welcome mat.
So if the common mistake is jumping straight to EC2, what is the absolute first step, the real foundation for everything else?
Step 1, you have to lock down the kingdom. And that means securing the root user identity immediately.
We often use the phrase God mode for the root user, but let's talk about what that really means, in terms of technical consequence. Why is compromising root so much worse than, say, a high-level admin account?
That's where the real danger is. It's a different class of problem. If a bad actor gets a hold of a standard administrative user...
Just a normal IAM user, even with a lot of permissions.
Exactly. That user's power is defined by a policy you wrote, an IAM policy. So you can change that policy, you can terminate the user, you can recover.
You're still in control.
Yeah.
Because even that admin is still subservient to the account's rules.
Precisely. But the root user, it isn't subservient in anything. Root bypasses every single organizational policy, every SCP you might set up later. It has unrestricted access to billing, to terminating foundational resources.
And crucially, it can delete every other user,
including all your administrative backup users.
So if root is compromised, it's not a breach, it's a total takeover. The access is permanent, and you can't revoke it from inside.
Exactly. The root user is the system. If those credentials are lost, your ability to recover is... well, it's severely limited. And that's why the protocol for this has to be extremely rigid.
Okay, so what does that rigid protocol look like in practice?
You log in as root exactly once, just one time. And during that single login, you do 2 things. First, you create an administrative IAM user for yourself. This is the account you'll use for 99.9% of everything you do in AWS from now on.
Okay.
And second, you set a frighteningly long, complex password for that root user, something you'd never remember.
And you store it securely.
Preferably physically, not digitally accessible on your machine.
That's a key detail, storing it physically.
Yeah.
So you create this master key, you put it in a digital safe deposit box, and you just stop using it.
It's your break glass in case of emergency login. And then we add a deadbolt to that safe.
Which brings us to step 2, enable MFA.
Multi-factor authentication.
The classic something you know and something you have layer. I mean, this is basic security hygiene, but I think a lot of new users still see it as an inconvenience and they just skip it.
Which is reckless. For the root user, it's mandatory. It is absolutely non-negotiable. This is your second crucial layer of defense.
Because even if that crazy password leaks,
it's useless. The hacker still needs your physical device, your phone, a hardware key to generate that temporary code. Without that physical token, the password on its own is worthless.
And while the absolute mandate is on root, the best practice is to immediately apply MFA to your new IAM admin user as well, right?
Yes.
Defense in depth.
Absolutely. Layer your defense. Once you've secured that root identity, you've basically secured the administrative front door. You can then use your own IAM user with, relative confidence, knowing the ultimate keys are locked away.
So we secured the access itself. We know who's allowed in, and they need 2 keys to get through the door. But what if the attack isn't external? What if the problem is, say, a configuration mistake or a malicious action from inside the account?
Hmm.
Maybe from a compromised IAM user we haven't locked down yet.
Mm-hmm.
We need eyes on the premises. How do we monitor everything that's happening?
And that brings us to step 3, monitoring the premises. You need to enable and configure CloudTrail.
I love the security camera analogy for CloudTrail, but let's dig into the technical value. It's so much more than just a timestamp, right? It's a full forensic record.
It is. I think the best analogy is the flight recorder, the black box for your entire cloud environment. CloudTrail records every single event. And in AWS, an event is really just another name for an API call.
So every action you take.
Every single action. From logging in to deleting a file in S3 to launching a service, it's an API call and CloudTrail logs it.
That granularity is just priceless.
Mm-hmm.
It means if something goes wrong, you don't just know that an EC2 instance disappeared.
No.
You know the specific API call, like terminal instances, the region it happened in, and the specific identity, the user who initiated it.
That's the critical piece. Without that log, if something just vanishes, your investigation is over before it starts. The trail is cold. CloudTrail gives you the audit trail to answer the big questions. Who did what, where, and when?
And this is so important for not just security, but compliance operations.
Troubleshooting, everything. And like securing the root user, you have to do this early. If you wait until you think there's a breach, the logs might not be there. Or they might not be configured to give you a permanent record.
Right.
Exactly. While CloudTrail tracks some things by default, in those first 24 hours, you have to ensure it's configured correctly. You want it to securely store those logs, ideally in a separate, dedicated S3 bucket with really strict permissions.
You want that data protected.
And permanent.
You want that permanent historical record for any forensic investigation or audit you might need months or even years down the line. It's security intelligence you're collecting from minute one.
Okay, so we've secured the system, we've established the full audit trail, we've covered the core security risks, but there is one other fear, one that absolutely haunts every single person who starts experimenting with AWS.
Ah, yes. The ghost of the surprise bill.
The ghost of the surprise bill. That deep, cold dread when you check your email and see a 4-figure charge you did not see coming.
It's a very real fear. It is. We've all seen the Reddit posts, right? I fell asleep for 48 hours and now I owe $6,000 post. Or the dev who accidentally provisioned a massive database cluster while they were just playing around in the free tier. That panic is immediate.
And it's budget breaking.
Yeah.
Which brings us to step 4, the tripwire that gives you the most immediate emotional relief. You need to set a budget alarm.
Okay, so where do we find this and how do we set it up so it's actually an effective early warning system?
It's under a service called AWS Budgets, and for new users, I would say it's mandatory. You set a strict threshold, and I mean really strict. If you're trying to stick to the free tier,
Which most new users are.
right, then you should set it to something minimal, like $1, maybe even a penny.
Now, why so tiny? If I expect to spend maybe $50 this month, why not set the alarm at $45?
Because that tiny threshold catches the accidental use of a paid service, and it catches it immediately. The crucial technical detail here is that AWS doesn't wait for the end-of-month bill. It uses predictive modeling. It sends you an immediate email notification if your forecasted costs are projected to exceed that amount.
Ah, so that's the game changer. It's not reactive, it's proactive.
Exactly.
So if I accidentally leave a powerful paid EC2 instance running for just a couple of hours, the system quickly forecasts, hey, if this keeps up, you're going to hit $100 this month, and it sends the alarm right away.
It's a financial siren. It prevents a small 2-hour mistake from escalating into a massive expense over days or weeks. It effectively turns your financial monitoring into an active security monitor, a new concept for a lot of people.
And the ultimate benefit here is just peace of mind. You set this tripwire, and you can focus on learning and experimenting and building without that constant background fear of accidentally bankrupting your side project.
Exactly. You know, we focus so much on complex technological defenses, but these 4 foundational steps, which are technically simple, they're accessible to any beginner, they address 99% of the real-world dangers facing a new AWS user. It's Survival 101.
So let's bring this home. If someone listening logs out right now and opens their AWS console, what is the sequence? What's the lightning round?
Okay, the 4-step first 24 hours protocol. Let's link the action to the goal.
First, secure the root user.
Right. Log in once, create your IAM admin, set a crazy long password, and lock those keys away. Don't use it.
Second, enable MFA.
Mandatory. Layer your defense with something you know and something you have, especially on that root account.
Third, Turn on CloudTrail.
Watch everything. Configure it to store those logs in S3 so you have a permanent audit trail of every single API call.
And finally, number 4, set a budget alarm.
Protect your wallet. Use that tripwire, that forecasting feature, to notify you of costs before they become actual painful liabilities.
These steps, they establish the foundational security and financial discipline you need. If you haven't done these yet, they are simple, they're effective, and they're absolutely mandatory for building successfully in the cloud.
They are, and what's really fascinating here is that basic security measures, when you apply them diligently, are often so much more effective than complex technological defenses. Which, raises an important question for you, the learner, as you get ready to build your first resource. You're now collecting all this rich audit data with CloudTrail. So instead of just reacting when something breaks, how will you use that log data proactively? How will you monitor those logs to figure out what normal activity even looks like for your new resources? Because if you know it's normal, you can spot the anomalies and the misconfigurations before they turn into a real incident. That proactive approach, that's the next level of cloud intelligence.